Welcome to Wounds to Wisdom. This is your sanctuary for transformation and empowerment. I'm Dr. Tracy, here to guide you through developing knowledge and awareness, providing you with coping strategies and being your companion as you ascend adversity. Together, we'll explore the power of resilience and healing. We will turn our struggles into strengths and our wounds into wisdom. Today's episode is dedicated to those of you who have experienced single incident trauma, whether through a sudden accident, an unexpected loss, or any single event that shook your sense of safety. Trauma can feel like an unwelcome visitor that lingers long after the event, but today we'll explore how to begin healing from it. As always, a gentle reminder, this episode may contain content that could be triggering. Please make sure you're in a safe space and feel free to pause or stop the episode at any point if you need to. Healing is a journey and your well-being comes first. So how do we understand single incident trauma? So single incident trauma refers to trauma caused by a one-time event, an event that occurs without warning, catching us off guard and disrupting our sense of safety and control. These events can range from car accidents, natural disasters, a sudden assault, or even witnessing a traumatic event happen to someone else. What makes these events traumatic is not only the intensity of the experience, but also the way that they strip us of our perceived safety and stability. In the blink of an eye, our world is turned upside down, and our mind and body struggle to make sense of what has happened. The aftershocks of this kind of trauma can last well beyond the event itself. What's essential to understand is that trauma impacts each of us differently. There's no right, there's no wrong. We just respond to trauma however we respond. What matters is recognizing the signs and finding ways to process, heal, and ultimately regain control over our lives. Let's talk about Anna. Anna was a client of mine, making her way home from work one day, when a car ran a red light and collided with her. While she survived with minor physical injuries, the emotional and psychological impact was much deeper. Anna found herself avoiding driving altogether after this. Even just sitting in the car made her heart race, and she often felt lightheaded, as though she might pass out as soon as she got behind the wheel. Anna couldn't understand why she still felt so shaken weeks after the accident. The event was over, but her body and mind were still reacting as if it was happening all over again. Flashbacks, nightmares, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness became a part of her daily life. She felt trapped in the memory of the crash. For Anna, this was a classic example of how a single traumatic event can create lasting imprints on both the body and the mind. Her nervous system was stuck in overdrive, still trying to protect her from a danger that had a long path. When Anna and I started working together, our goal was to help her regain control over her body and her mind, starting with small steps. One of the first things we practiced was grounding techniques. Simple exercises like placing her feet firmly on the ground and focusing on the feeling of her body in the present moment. What she did remember from the crash was how, as there was the point of impact, her feet came off of the pedals, so she did actually feel as if she was suspended in the air to some degree, and she had a really slow motion recall of that moment. We also used breathing exercises to help regulate her nervous system. Something as simple as slowing down the breath, counting to 4 on the inhale and 6 on the exhale, helped signal to her body that she was safe in the here and now. As Anna began to feel more comfortable in her body again, we slowly reintroduced her to driving using exposure therapy, a gradual process of safely confronting her fear. It took time, but eventually she was able to drive again. And while the memory of the crash didn't disappear, it no longer controlled her life. Anna's journey to healing is a testament to the resilience that lives within each of us. So the things that we think that we really can't do, maybe, just maybe we can. Now let's talk about Tom. Tom worked as a security guard in a busy shopping centre when one night an altercation broke out. Whilst trying to intervene, Tom was assaulted by a group of people. Though his physical wounds healed within weeks, the emotional scars were harder to overcome. After the incident, Tom found himself constantly on edge. Everyday activities like going to the shop became overwhelming. He avoided crowds, and any time he saw someone who looked remotely like one of his attackers, his body would go into overdrive. His heart would race, his hands would tremble, and his mind would be searching for an escape, looking for exits constantly, looking for a way out. Tom was experiencing what many trauma survivors do, which is something called hypervigilance. His nervous system was on constant alert, scanning for threats even when none were present. The traumatic event had shaken his sense of safety, and his body was responding as if it could happen again at any moment. We don't know what's going to be around the next corner. We just have to trust that it's not always bad. In therapy, we work together on progressive relaxation techniques, starting by tensing and then releasing different muscle groups to help him allow his body to let go of the tension it was holding. We also practice mindfulness, focusing on staying present and noticing when his mind was drifting into anxious thoughts or replaying the trauma. Another important part of Tom's healing was learning how to reclaim his space. He felt powerless during the attack, and so much of his healing journey was about regaining the sense of control that he felt he lost in the traumatic incident. Together we mapped out ways that he could start reclaiming the spaces that now felt unsafe to him. For Tom, this meant slowly reintroducing himself to the environments he had been avoiding, first through visualization, then short visits until he felt comfortable being there again. Once more, the memory doesn't go, but the emotional salience that's attached to it begins to reduce over time. Through this gradual process, Tom rebuilt his sense of safety. The assault may have left a mark, but it no longer dictated his actions. He moved forward with courage and resilience. So if we think about the brain's response to trauma, we discover that it's really powerful. When faced with a sudden, overwhelming event, the brain goes into survival mode. It floods the body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing us to fight, flight, or freeze. This is the body's way of protecting us in the moment. But when the trauma is over, the brain sometimes struggles to turn off that response. In people like Anna and Tom, the brain's alarm system remains stuck in the on position. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, where fear resides, becomes overactive, while the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and decision-making, struggles to regain control. This is why even long after the event, people may feel like they are reliving the trauma. The brain can't always differentiate between the past and the present. And this confusion happens when we're stuck in survival mode. But the good news is that with time and patience and the right therapeutic tools, the brain can heal and can recalibrate whether we're in the past, the present, or the future. One crucial area that trauma affects, which we often don't immediately recognise, is our relationships. Trauma can deeply disrupt the way we connect with others, making it difficult to trust, communicate, or feel secure in close relationships. For many survivors, the impact of trauma creates a ripple effect in relationships with families, partners, and even friends. Trauma can leave us feeling disconnected from ourselves, and when we're not fully connected to ourselves, it's challenging to be truly connected to others. Let me share a story about Sarah. Sarah was involved in a traumatic incident where her home was broken into while she was asleep. This left her feeling incredibly vulnerable and unsafe in her own space. As the months went on, Sarah realised that she was becoming increasingly closed off, not only in her home, but in her relationship. She noticed that she no longer trusted her partner the way she once did. She was hyper-aware of every sound in the house, constantly second-guessing whether her partner had locked the doors or secured the windows. This created tension in their relationship. Her partner felt hurt by her mistrust, and Sarah felt guilty but couldn't shake the anxiety. Together we worked on rebuilding her sense of safety, starting with small daily routines that made her feel more in control of her environment. But more than that, we focused on the communication between Sarah and her partner. They began to talk openly about the trauma, discussing her fears and the impact it was having on their relationship. By bringing her partner into the healing process, Sarah felt less alone in her journey. She began to trust again, not just her partner, but herself and her abilities. Her abilities that she was concerned about were really her capacity to navigate difficult emotion. Over time, this open dialogue helped repair the strain that trauma had placed on their relationship. Trauma can disrupt communication in many ways. After a traumatic event, survivors may struggle with expressing their emotions or needs. They might find it hard to talk about their feelings, or they may push others away for fear of being hurt or judged. This is particularly true in intimate relationships, where vulnerability is key. Sometimes trauma survivors feel misunderstood or isolated, which can lead to breakdowns in communication. They may be more irritable or emotionally distant, without meaning to, but it's a defense mechanism. Their partners, friends, or family members may interpret this as rejection or disinterest, which can cause further tension. In these situations, it's important to recognise that trauma is influencing behaviour. Healing in relationships involves compassionate communication, both for the survivor and their loved one. Rebuilding trust takes time, and it's important to create a safe space for open dialogue. One of the most powerful tools for healing trauma in relationships is repairing ruptures as they happen. Trauma can cause us to overreact or shut down in the moment, but recognising when this happens and being able to come back to the conversation with love and openness is crucial. In therapy, we often work on this in order to allow survivors and their loved ones to express their needs, feelings and concerns without fear of judgment. This includes learning how to ask for support, how to listen actively, and how to recognise when trauma is influencing a conversation. For Sarah, it was helpful to learn that her reactions were a normal response to trauma. She and her partner practiced active listening, where each would take turns to speak and simply be heard, without interruption. This helped them feel connected again, even in the midst of difficult emotions. Now, thinking of another client I had, Jack. He had a very different experience with single incident trauma. He was involved in a workplace accident where a machine malfunctioned, causing a serious injury to one of his colleagues. While Jack wasn't physically harmed, the shock of witnessing the event stayed with him. He found it increasingly difficult to go back to work, but beyond that, he also withdrew from his social circle. His friends noticed a change. Jack was once social and outgoing, and he just began to turn down invitations to meet up. He felt anxious in group settings, he was worried that something unexpected or catastrophic might happen, and his friends just didn't understand why he had become so distant, and their relationship started to fade. In our sessions, Jack expressed feelings of guilt and isolation, knowing that his trauma was affecting his friendships, but feeling powerless to change it. Together, we worked on strategies to help him reconnect. One of the most effective methods was gradual social re-engagement, starting with small, controlled social settings, where Jack felt more in control and slowly expanded his comfort zone. We also practiced self-compassion, reminding Jack that it was okay to take small steps, and that healing didn't mean rushing back to who he was before the trauma, but it was about rebuilding who he was now. Over time, he also then rebuilt his friendships, explaining his experience to those who mattered the most, and finding a new sense of connection and support. Now, if we think of coping strategies after single incident trauma, these are key to moving forwards and regaining a sense of stability and empowerment. The first coping strategy is mindfulness. Mindfulness is about being fully present in the moment without judgment. For trauma survivors, it can be difficult to stay present, as their minds tend to wander back to the traumatic event or into future anxieties. Practicing mindfulness can help ground us, keeping us centered and connected to the here and now. One simple mindfulness technique is body scanning. This involves mentally scanning the body from head to toe, noticing any tension or discomfort, and simply acknowledging it without trying to change it. The goal is to increase awareness of your body, which is particularly important after trauma because the body often holds on to the stress long after the mind has moved on. Another powerful coping tool is grounding techniques. Grounding is especially helpful when you're feeling overwhelmed or caught up in traumatic memories. One effective technique is the 5-4-3-2-1 method, where you focus on 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This practice helps bring your focus back to the present moment and reconnects you with your surroundings. It's a gentle reminder that you are here and you are safe. Another strategy is progressive muscle relaxation. Trauma often causes physical tension, as the body responds to stress by tightening up. The muscles contract because they're about to think that they want to run as soon as there's a perceived danger. Progressive relaxation involves tensing each muscle group for a few seconds and then releasing the tension. This can help you to become more aware of where your body holds stress and teaches you how to consciously relax those muscles. Journaling could also be incredibly therapeutic. Writing down your thoughts and feelings gives you a safe space to process what's happening inside without fear of judgment. Journaling helps externalize the internal chaos, offering a sense of release and clarity. You can start by writing down any intrusive thoughts or emotions that come up, or even recounting the day's events and how you felt in certain situations. Over time, journaling can help you identify triggers and patterns in your emotions, providing a roadmap to healing. The self-soothing toolkit is another coping mechanism worth exploring. This involves creating a collection of comforting items and activities that can help calm your nervous system. This might include a favourite book, a blanket, a playlist of calming music, essential oils, or any sensory experiences that bring you comfort. By having these tools readily available, you can turn to them whenever you feel triggered or overwhelmed. Finally, seeking social support is critical. Trauma can make us feel isolated, but connecting with others who understand and care about us is essential to healing. Whether it's a trusted friend, family member, or therapist, having a safe person to talk to can make a huge difference. Support groups are also valuable, as they provide a space to share experiences with others who have been through similar situations. So the path to healing after trauma often involves rebuilding not just ourselves, but our relationships. Trauma can create walls, but with patience, openness, and understanding, these walls can come down. It's important to remember that healing happens in connection with others, whoever those others are. It's anyone you feel safe with, or anyone that you're willing to try and build a sense of safety with. Reconnection can take many forms, whether it's sharing your story with someone or practicing vulnerability in small, manageable steps. The key is to allow yourself to be seen and supported as you heal. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Healing from single incident trauma is a process. It's okay to take it one step at a time. Remember, even small victories are worth celebrating. It's your resilience, it's your courage, and these are what carry you forward. You are not defined by what has happened to you. You can choose how to heal and rebuild yourself. In our next episode, we'll explore re-traumatization, what happens when old wounds resurface, and how we can approach these moments with care and compassion. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode has brought you some insight and perhaps even a sense of comfort. If it has, feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Together we are building a community of healing and strength. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself, and remember you are not alone on this journey. Thank you for sharing this space with us today on your journey of healing and growth. Remember, healing is not linear, and it's okay to take one step at a time. If this episode touched your heart, taught you something, or gave you strength, then please share it with someone who needs to hear it. As always, be gentle with yourself because you're doing amazing. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and thank you for letting me use my voice to hear your voice.